Okay, it's a little after 6 o'clock, 6:01. We're going to go ahead, we do have quorum. I'm going to go ahead and now call this evening's meeting of the zoning appeals for the city of Florence to order. First item on this evening's agenda is approval of minutes from September 22nd, 2022 meeting. These minutes have been submitted to the members of the board with ample time to review. And are there any changes or amendments to September 22nd, 2022 appeals board meetings?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Okay. Well, we entertain, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, the motion carries. The minutes are approved. This next item on this evening's agenda is as followed. Public hearing and matter in position for action, BZA-2022-12. This is a request for a variance from the setback requirements to allow an accessory building to be located at 1122 Kenwood Avenue in the NC-6.1 zoning district shown as tax map number 90048-05-001. And let me get that. And the owner on record is a Maynard Parker. Applicant is Maynard Parker. Zoning district is Neighborhood Conservation 6.1. And the board will now hear from city staff.
Good evening. This parcel is located on the corner of Kenwood Avenue and Heatherwood Drive off of Franklin Drive. This is a location map of it. As you can see, the house is tucked in against the rear property line facing onto Kenwood Avenue. These houses were all developed in the 1940s and 50s at a time when presumably setbacks were not as enforced. The applicant has installed a accessory building between the house and the interior side property line. And in this district, side setbacks are to be the same as for the zoning district, and the rear setbacks are 10 feet for accessory buildings over 10 feet tall. Technically, those setbacks are met for the interior side. It's like right at 5 feet, and from the rear, it's in excess of 10 feet. But the problem really comes in where in the location, because accessory buildings are supposed to be located in the backyard behind the rear plane of the house. But this one extends about 6 feet past the front plane of the house into the front yard. Also, for maximum size of accessory buildings, they should not cover an area larger than 25% of the gross floor area of the principal building. The house would presume that it would have about, I can't remember, it's in your pack, about 1,000 square feet. The larger building, the newer one, is 27% of the size of the house. So on its own, it's just a little larger than that 25%, but there is a pre-existing 9x16 building in the far corner, which together they equal 41% of the gross floor area. The number of accessory buildings is limited to 1 per single-family residential lot, and currently there are 2, although the owner has indicated that he will remove that smaller old one in the future. And compatibility, accessory buildings are supposed to be compatible with the principal building. The materials and the fenestration of the windows and doors are fine. The color just isn't exactly the same as the house. So the main variance that's needed is for the location and the size. This is a site plan showing the locations of the 2 buildings. The house, it does meet the 25-foot front setback, but the blue building is the one in question, the newer one. It's only 18 feet from the front property line. The right-of-way, the street does not actually start for another 17 feet, so it is about 35 feet off of the roadway, but since the measurements are supposed to be taken from property lines, it's 18 feet from the property line. It's about 6 feet off the side property line, so it's good there, and 16 off the rear property line, so it's good in that way. But as you can see, the main problem is that it does extend into the front yard past the plane of the house. And in the green square is the pre-existing 9x16 accessory building. So here's some photos. The one on the large one, you can see how the house and the accessory building are in relation to each other and how it does extend into the front yard. The one on the upper right is the view from Heatherwood, looking directly at the house and seeing again the extension of the accessory building. And then the one on the bottom right shows how tiny the backyard is. The backyard is only about 12 feet deep. So here's some more photos of the building next to the side property line. That interior side does have a lot of foliage, so that really doesn't present a problem there in and of itself. So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Is there any questions from members of the board for the city staff, Ms. Lane?
You said the owner will tear the other building down.
Yes, that's what he had said to me. He didn't give me a timeline on it, though.
I don't understand.
He did not give me a time frame as to when he would be tearing that second building down.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. I do have a question. The pictures, is the building already constructed?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so there's two buildings currently there.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, now the first building,
You can't see it from the street.
do y'all have pictures of the second building?
No, I would have had to go right deeply into the backyard to get it.
Yes, ma'am.
You can just barely see it in this picture. It's behind the accessory building.
Okay, so bottom line is the building is already there.
That's
So
correct.
he's not asking for him to put it there. It's already there.
already
He's asking
there.
for a variance against it. Keep it. Got you.
That's correct.
Keep it
yes.
there. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Any other questions from the board for city staff? Mr. Daniel?
Yes, you said the rear setback is 12 feet, because in the diagrams, it looks like the house is right on the line.
Yes, I think our property lines from our GIS are just a little bit off. He gave me the measurement of 12 feet, and if you look at it, the little site plan there, it looks like the fence line is farther down on the bottom of the picture. So he gave me a measurement of about 12 feet in the back. So it probably is a little bit farther from the rear property line, even than that 16 feet.
All right.
So the setbacks are not really the problem, it's just that it's not located in the backyard, but there is no real backyard to put it in.
Okay.
So you said the setbacks aren't the problem. So even the front one, because I heard you say something about the front one being farther
Yeah,
than
the
the house.
front,
Are
the
all
front
of them in?
setback does not meet the requirements because it's
So one of
supposed
them
to be
does not meet
behind
the
the rear
requirements.
plane of the house.
The rear one does not. 16 feet?
As it is right now, technically it would meet that, the rear setback is supposed to be 10 feet and meets that, but it's supposed to be behind the rear plane of the house.
That's where it fails. Got you. So it meets the setback lines, it just fails the plane where.
Because it has no backyard here, it had to be pushed forward because of the size of it. So the variance is the location of it.
So actually, looking at the map, removing that back portion, the green one I take is the other shed.
Yes.
Looks like removing that, you can push it back another 6 feet and it'd be within
Well,
qualification.
there'd be no way to get it behind the rear plane of the house, but he could at least get it behind the front plane of the house.
But currently, he is failing based on the square footage, 41%, due to the second one. If he didn't have the second one, he would meet, would he meet it then?
Pretty much, he'd be at 27%.
Over by 2%.
That would be, okay. Now, he indicated to you that he was gonna do it, or was that y'all's request? The city requested him to do it?
He told me that he would in the future, he was planning to remove it because it was damaged.
Would that be something possible to put in there in a
Absolutely.
condition saying, we can grant the variance based on a condition that he remove that
Yes.
first and fourth, and put a time limit on it though? Don't
Absolutely.
say next week or, yeah. Okay, that's good. Thank you, Ms. Lane.
Right, because that's, as I understand, the square footage of the variance, and the fact that the building is extending out 8 feet from the measurement that I just saw.
Right.
The building is
Right.
8 feet forward of the plane of the house,
Right. Okay.
but it's,
But he doesn't have too much anywhere else to put it, so.
Okay, that's a corner lot, but, okay, there is an adjacent property, but it's shielded by the trees or by the foliage, right?
That's correct.
Was there any input from the community?
I haven't received a single phone call now.
Okay.
There's nobody, or we'll get, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Good.
I do have one question. The city, for this variance, did the city, were they called in to enforce this, or was this?
I believe this was a codes enforcement.
So they just popped in on a surprise, or was that,
I think he was just driving around and noticed it.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Any other questions? All righty. Thank you so very much, Ms. Elaine, for city staff. Okay, we will, the board will now hear from the applicant. Is the applicant here today? Okay, yes, sir. Come on up, sir. We'll. Wait, come on up here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swear you in. Just this is a quasi-legal. You can come on up here and right in front of that microphone. And, sir, I'm just gonna ask you, do you promise, the testimony you are about to give is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. You may continue with your testimony.
I have a letter from a few of my neighbors. I do have a letter stating that there's no concern with the shed with the neighbor right next to me on the other side of the little tree line thing there. And like I said, I plan on removing the old shed. When I bought the house, I just bought it last November, I had termite damage. Therefore, I would just rather be done with the whole thing. I still have some belongings in there, which I will move to the other shed if this gets granted. I didn't want to put too much in the new shed if it wasn't going to be able to stay there. Like I said, I have no room. My lot is like very small, 1 acre. And there's like no backyard, no side yard. Everything's road front. About it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Give us 1 second. I'm gonna see if we have any questions for you.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any questions from members of the board?
I have one
For
question.
the applicant? Yeah, Ms. Moses.
Mr. Parker, when you do move that, the other building, the smaller building, will you be able to move your new building back a little back?
Yeah, it's a portable shed, absolutely.
So it will be able to?
Yeah,
move?
it's not a permanent fixture.
Okay. Was that in your plans to move it back?
I
when you
can, if
move
that's
that
what it
up?
needs to be, it'll happen.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for the applicant? I do have one
Okay.
question. Moving that shed, it doesn't seem like it'd be a problem at all. If the board and the city and y'all work together, what is some time limit that something like that can be done?
To remove the old one?
Yes, sir.
Right now, I'm working 6 days a week.
Yes.
That's gonna leave me Sundays, you know what I mean? I don't have the finances to have somebody come in and do it right now.
Just a roundabout number, what are you thinking, a month, 2 months,
I would, at least a couple of months.
a couple months? Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curiously asking.
Right, we're heading into
What
the
your
winter-
thoughts are.
The winter months, you know what I mean?
Oh,
So-
absolutely. Okay. Thank you so very much,
Yeah.
sir. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so very much for your testimony. You have a good day, sir. All right. There's no other questions. There's anybody else would like to be heard from the public in regards to this matter? All right. There being none, the chair would now entertain a motion from members of the board to either approve or deny the variance.
Before we go to a motion, I've got another question for the city.
Oh,
If, the applicant has indicated that the building is somewhat portable, once that other building's out of the way. So, if he did push it back, would there be, would he need another variance for the rear setback?
Well, that you could indicate that here, that you were okay with, that you're okay with it as long as it's behind the front plane of the house. It could go to within, and then you could say however many feet we're comfortable with.
What is the rear setback by code?
10 feet.
Okay, actually, he'd be pretty close.
And if there's existing nonconformities on a lot, as long as they're not increasing, a lot of times if they replace it in a timely manner, we allow, you know, the replacement in kind or as is. So I think as long as it's not any closer than the existing shed, it could potentially be coded.
Actually, it looks like it would be close. It'd be about a 2-foot variance on the back, to the back, but still further away than the existing shed in the corner.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, I'll read. Okay. All right. There being no questions, the chair will now entertain a motion. A motion from members of the board to either approve or deny the variance request. Again, the chair will now entertain a motion to either deny or accept the variance request we have in front of us. Is there a motion from anyone?
Not prepared.
If we have a motion.
No, I said I'm not prepared. I've had a busy work week, especially with the provisions that we're discussing.
Well, if you, I'm sure a board member could either approve it or deny it based on conditions. We made, Ms. Elaine made it clear that we can add that in. Yes, the
Would you
city.
like me to summarize the conditions?
Would you like her to summarize the conditions? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Removal of the old building and relocation of this one back so that at least it is parallel to the plane of the front of the house. And to do that within 90 days?
So you said 90 days and also you said one other thing, the first one, I'm sorry.
Removing the existing.
Removal
the
in
second
90
building.
days. Oh, removal within 90 days.
Right. Removal and moval.
Oh, removal and
movement
then
of the-
in compliance.
Bring it into, yes.
Gotcha, that was tongue twister.
So that would be the conditions for granting all the variances would be that the small building is removed and that the accessory building is just shifted backwards so that it's in line with the front of the house. And then that all gets done within 90 days.
What about with the setback?
No setback too small, like non-conforming.
So it'd be all.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Do y'all understand that, board members? Any questions for Ms. Lane? Thank you so much for clearing that up. All right, that being said, we will entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request here tonight.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Chico?
Let's see if I can get through this. I move that we grant the request for the variance.
Oh, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Now I need to read.
Oh, yeah, yes, I'm sorry, yes, sir. Ms. Chico, you were right. Yes, sir. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. I move that we conditionally grant the request for variance based on the following finding of fact. That a variance from the terms of the zoning ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest when and because of special conditions, literal enforcement of the provision will in this individual case result in unnecessary hardship, and that this is a corner lot of small size and the area between the house and the back property line is only 12 feet. There's not enough room for the shed in the rear of the property. Two, that the spirit of the zoning ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done, and that this property is very small, has an odd shape, and there is a pre-existing house. Oops, I went to the wrong place. Correction, that the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done, because the intent of the ordinance is to prevent accessory buildings from overwhelming the house and lot in which they are associated with the residential area. Granting the location and size variance results in allowing the accessory building to extend into the front yard from its place between the house and the line of trees along the property line. 3, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, namely the small size of the property and the orientation of the lot and the house, especially in the lack of a backyard, severely limit the options for the location of an accessory building. The interior side property line is 58 feet long, and the rear property line is 108 feet long. That these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity, as this is a corner lot developed in the 1940s, and the house was built with minimum backyard and minimum setbacks. The other houses in the area are constructed on larger lots and are oriented to have a larger rear yard. 5, because of these conditions, the application of the zoning ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property by requiring adherence to the specifics. For accessory buildings, it would not prevent the use as a single-family home, but it would make it very difficult to have an accessory structure of this size on the lot. The smaller existing shed does not meet the current setback requirements either. 6, that the authorization of the variance will not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by granting of this variance. Because the accessory building is located between the house and a row of trees along the side property line, which is the most unobstructed location for it. Removal of the 9x6 shed would reduce the number of accessory structures, and it would reduce the number of accessory structures, bringing that into compliance, and also significantly reduce the total area consumed by accessory buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Chico.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to grant the variance request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. All right, the ayes have it. This variance request is granted. Thank you so very much, sir. We got a couple more. You're more than welcome to stay, but other than that, you're granted, and she'll get with you. Thank you so very much, sir. All right, the next order on this evening's agenda will be the public hearing and matter and position for action, BZA 2022-13, request for a variance from the setback requirements to expand the commercial building located at 1256 East Palmetto Street in the CG zoning district, shown as tax map number 117-22-002. And the owner on record is a Margaret M. Poston, trustee. Alan Poston. The applicant is M. Pageant Engineering and Construction, LLC, Mike Pageant. And the zoning district is CG, which is commercial general. And we will now, the board will now hear from city staff. Derek.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. All right, so this is Jackie Poston's fueling station. Is situated on East Palmetto Street between Cemetery Street, South Jefford Street, and East Palmetto Street. And here's just a little closer location. This was before the board in September of 2020. They came back in 2021 to correct a drawing error that had occurred, and they were approved in 2021, and now they're coming back in 2022 to try to get further variance from setbacks previously granted. As you said, this is in the commercial general zoning district, so those are the setbacks that they're requesting a variance from. And future land use is commercial auto urban. So here are some pictures of Jackie Poston's fueling station. You can see the shed in the back that has the chain link fence around it. That will be a part of the proposed expansion of the fueling station. They would like to expand the existing building both to the east and to the south. And I do have a map I'll show y'all in a second. So far, there's been no new construction since the initial variance was granted in 2020. And these are just a few more pictures. So Mr. Paget has drawn out, the blue represents what the commercial general setbacks permit. The yellow represents the current building, and then the pink is what was previously approved. So the board in 2021 approved a side variance of 18 feet and a rear variance of 4 feet. The owner is coming back and asking for a side variance of 15 feet and a rear setback of 0, which is represented by this drawing. So this is a continuation of a use that has existed since 1975. The building expansion is proposed to be approximately 2,000 square feet. The setbacks previously, when it was built in 1975, would have been, it would have been 20 feet in the rear initially, and then it would have been 10 feet on the side instead of the what is required now. So that is the variance that is being requested: a 15-foot setback on the side and a 0-foot setback on the rear. So that does conclude staff's report, and Mr. Alan Poston is available to answer questions.
Thank you, Derek. Is there any questions from members of the board for city staff?
Yes. What is there a right of way at all between the property line and the and Cemetery Street?
There is past the property line. Initially, they requested a variance to go over the property line. Cemetery Street is a city-maintained road, and we just can't permit construction over the property line into the street's right-of-way. So essentially, they're... Oh, yeah.
Right there.
So,
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at.
yeah. That shows, the property line and then the right-of-way represented by Cemetery Street.
That answer your question, Mr. Chico?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Derek. Is there any other questions for city staff?
But Derek just got through saying you can't allow what?
We couldn't allow the expansion of the building to go over the owner's property line
Right.
and into the right-of-way of Cemetery Street. So the property owner, if y'all grant the variance, could build right up to the property line, making sure they meet building codes, fire codes, but they would not be permitted to build over the property line. Yes, sir.
How about if they close the street?
That's not something that we're proposing at this time.
Oh,
Thank you, Derek.
Abandoning a street does take city council approval.
And that's been lightly discussed in the past, but it would take the cooperation of all the adjacent property owners and making sure that everyone along that street has access as well. So it's quite a process, but it's doable. Yes.
there ain't nobody on the street there.
Yeah, they're.
I think it's hard. Can you put that other picture up? I think
Yeah.
that, not that one, the other one, where you can see the houses clearly behind it.
Is that one better, or?
Yes, are those the back of the houses or are those the front of those houses? That's the line Cemetery Street.
These are the front of the house.
Yeah. do depend on Cemetery Street for frontage.
There's a wider view that shows it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Come up with
Send it to
come
Matt.
up with it.
All right.
That too.
Yeah, that shows the parcels there.
Oh, thank you. Is any other questions for city staff? All right, thank you, Derek. Thank you, Mr. Dudley. The board will now hear from the applicant. It's my understanding he's here.
Yes.
Mr. Poston? Come on up. If you can be sworn in, and we'll get your testimony. All right, Mr. Poston, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth?
I shall do.
Yes, sir. You may continue.
Hey, when they were referring to the houses in the back, the center house I already own anyway. The corner lot I already own. Only one lot, which is on the opposite corner, I don't own it, is present.
You said the corner house?
The corner house that's on the corner of
Charlotte.
Charlotte. And they got access to Charlotte, if that was the case.
And at this time, that is not
No,
being proposed.
but I'm just, you know, you just brought that up, and I just.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, she was
You're
talking
right.
about access to the houses. The one house in the center that you're looking at, I own that. So the only house is the corner house down in the corner, which I don't own.
Mr. Poston, have you had any complaints from any neighbors or?
No.
Well, I guess we'll get to, but yeah, nobody's in favor, for, or against, no complaints
No.
has been expressed to you.
No.
I'm sure we should have asked the city that.
Did y'all?
We have received no complaints.
Y'all have received no complaints. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, no.
And one of the reasons I came back was the first time I didn't realize I was going to have to put new bathrooms in. I thought I'd be grandfathered. But in doing what we did, I found out I got to have bathrooms twice as big as what I have now. And therefore, what I'm doing, the back area is not going to be big enough to handle what I'm doing. I'd have to put some sort of storage unit or something like that there back in the back to give me ample storage for cups and everything else that I have, you know, using in the front. And especially when I extend it, I got more items and everything else, and I need back storage for.
Anything? Thank you, Mr.
No.
Allen. Let me see if we got any questions anymore.
Okay.
I know we were shooting you
That's
back and
fine.
forth to it, but just in case, is there any questions from members of the board for the applicant tonight?
Well, Mr. Post, if you get a variance to the property line, would that help your plans as to what you?
You sure would.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Poston.
All right.
Members of the board will now hear from the public, any members that would like to come up. Is there anybody from the public? All right. There being none, is there anybody else want to be heard? There being none, the chair will now entertain a motion for members of the board to either approve or deny the variance.
Chairman, before we do that, just a couple questions for the city. As far as zero property line, is there any precedence for that? I mean, I think in the downtown area we have some
That's
zero
exactly
property
right.
line.
The central business district is the only zoning district that permits 0-foot lot lines. Yes, sir.
And did the city evaluate like obstruction of visibility to the intersections? You know, if there's a building right there on the lot line, are the intersections obstructed from view? It doesn't appear to be to me, but I'm just.
It looks like there would be ample space. That would be something that we would check out during the permitting process to make sure that driver visibility is not obstructed.
Well, from what I'm looking at, it doesn't appear. If that corner of the building is on the property line as depicted, It's still a significant distance from either intersection. So again, thinking about downtown, you know, you have buildings that are 10 feet from the road.
Right.
And so you have to pull up right to the intersection before you can see past.
That's exactly right.
So I'm just, you know, trying to visualize this. So I don't think there's a visual obstruction issue at all.
Right. This kind of shows the best picture of the back of the building and the storage that would be. So to the right in the picture would be Cemetery Street. So yeah, one of the corners would touch, I guess, sort of the apron of the road, the right of way, the property line, and then that's kind of looking back towards East Palmetto Street. That kind of gives you a good visual of, I guess, what the optics would be possibly in the future.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Hughes?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All
I
right.
want that.
Got another question, Mr. Nathaniel?
Where has this, the reason I'm asking this question, I'm from the area, East Florence, and I remember for years, the property that was in the county, all of this what we're talking about right now. So since he's been annexed into the city, the property being a triangle, it's no fault of theirs. Does the city have any kind of, could he be grandfathered?
Well, one of the reason that a variance could be granted, one of the, I guess, conditions or one of the reasons that it was granted is that it is a triangular shaped lot, and just due to the being surrounded by streets, that expansion could possibly be harder than other locations.
Plus, there's nobody there for him to interfere with because they own all the property.
Well, there is at least one residence to the south on Cemetery Street.
Yeah.
And then obviously he would be a little bit closer to commercial property to the east. And then, you know, newly acquired land that the city has that they will use for a park in the future. We're finishing up demolition.
They just finished that demolition there.
Right. So that will be absorbed into the park.
Right next to a park.
Well, he
Right.
already has property against the park.
Right. There's an ABC store, and then it will be City Park. So
I'm just trying to.
yeah, I'm just saying he'll be a little bit closer to commercial on this side, a little bit closer to residential to the south.
In no way, shape, or form it can obstruct the flow of traffic within that area with it coming directly, like how he was saying, with the visual of them turning either way.
No, it's struggling.
When we do review for the actual building, when we go through the zoning permit process, we'll make sure that Mr. Paget does denote that, you know, driver visibility will not be compromised.
When we go through full development plan review, we require the site triangles and things we put on there, but just at cursory glance and looking at the site plan available and the geometry of the streets and the building, it doesn't appear that there'll be any issues, you know, at the angles of approach on Cemetery Street.
Right.
It doesn't appear that there would be any at the intersection.
Thank you. And again, y'all had the signs up clearly marked where if not only property owners but residents, if there was any issue, I'm sure that being quite a
Gets a lot of
visible traffic
traffic,
place,
yes, sir.
we would have heard from something, but not one word.
Yeah, I can tell you one of the problems is right as soon as you pass Cemetery Street, that's county. That's one of the, that's why.
So a couple more steps and it had not been on our case.
Right.
Well, Jackie annexed that into the city back years ago. It was county to begin with, and they told him they wouldn't get police protection and everything else back then if he didn't annex it all in. And at that point, he did. But in every area other than that one house, we own all the property on all sides, going all the way back to the blocks over. Other than that motel that they just bought.
You have a question for him or the city?
I just thought of something I'd like to
Yes,
ask
correct, Mr.
Mr.
Allen.
Poston.
Ms. Post, can I get you to come back? I'm so sorry. And we just try to keep everything proper procedure. All right, Mr. Moses.
Just a quick question, Mr. Poston. Will your annexation in any way affect your parking? Is it going to cut back on parking? over
No,
there?
we got ample parking
You
as
have
far
ample
as
parking.
doing it,
That is
and
a
if we,
busy intersection. People coming in and going out.
no, like I said, if you look at the property, all the footage on the front and all the driveways, we got ample parking and ample driveways coming in and out.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and if we need to, like I said, we own the property on the back side, the sides, or anything else. If we need to put employees or whatever else, they could park over there.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Poston. Is
Thank
any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Poston. Go ahead.
Have you considered, so it could be clear on your parking, because I know you don't have any parking lines. I don't know if that will help when it comes down to the spacing of your area. Have you ever considered doing parking, like actually labeling parking in your
We've had it in the past. The last time the guy resurfaced the thing again, we don't have it again. He didn't put the parking lines in because this has been ongoing. This building should have been already built. It's
2 years.
It just took a longer time because of what was going on with the pandemic and everything else, not being able to line stuff up. The prices going up stupid on everything that we're doing. But all that, I'll put parking lines in.
and the reason why I ask, because it's a lot of through traffic throughout the parking lot, and with you expanding like that, you want to make sure even enter and out, there's no collisions within the parking itself. Parking lot itself. That's what I'm saying. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Poston.
And the expansion will trigger requiring those parking spaces to be clearly marked.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the board? Tied it right up. All right. Well, the chair will now entertain a motion from members of the board to either approve or deny the variance request. And Derek, I guess city, I need to make, I abstained myself from the past 2 meetings as voting, and as being chairman, I will, if there is a tie, we'll take it then, but
Okay.
I would not be voting, abstain myself from voting based on those premises.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Being said, is there a motion to grant it or oppose it? Being the chair, I'd like to remind y'all, I'm not able to entertain, propose a motion, but I can entertain the motion from y'all.
Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion. Mr. Chico. I'll move that we grant the request for the variance based on the following findings of fact. That this variance from the terms of the zoning ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest when, because of special conditions, a literal enforcement of the revisions will, in this individual case, result in unnecessary hardship, in that the building was constructed prior to the adoption of the Unified Development Ordinance. The old city of Florence zoning ordinance allowed for a 20-foot rear setback instead of the current 40, and a 10-foot side setback instead of the current 20. This lot is surrounded on 3 sides by streets, limiting the options for expansion. The only zoning district which allows a 0-foot setback for commercial buildings is the Central Business District, which is in the downtown area of the city. 2, that the spirit of the zoning ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, substantial justice done. That the east side of the property requiring the 5-foot setback variance will be adjacent to commercial property. The south side of the property requiring the 20-foot setback variance is adjacent to residential property and will result in less space between the 2 disparate uses. The building code will require additional fire safety measures due to the proximity of the property line. Emergency space available to motor vehicles will be reduced. 3, that there are extraordinarily exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, namely that the commercial parcel is essentially surrounded on all sides by roads, limiting expansion possibilities. 4, these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. That this property does have a unique layout and is surrounded by 3 different streets. Other properties in the vicinity do not have reduced setbacks. The only zoning district that allows a 0-foot setback, and just correction. 4, they do not apply to other properties in the vicinity. This property has a unique layout and is surrounded by 3 different streets, which limits the property owner from purchasing adjacent property. 5, because of these conditions, the application of the zoning ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. That the current setbacks for commercial building in the central district would restrict the owner's desire to expand the building for his business needs to the extent requested. 6, that the authorization of the variance will not be substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance, because the proposed building expansion of approximately 2,000 square feet to the existing gas station is a continuation of the use that has existed since 1975. The proposal is in line with future land use along East Palmetto, commercial auto urban. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chico. We have a motion to grant the variance request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. This variance request is granted. Thank you, Mr. Poston. Yes, sir. And the city will be with you, and you're done here. And if you'd like to stay for the last one, we'll be more than welcome to have you. Thank you, sir. You have a very good day. Okay, on the next order of business on this evening's agenda is, let's get you right here. All right, this is a public hearing and matter in position for action, BZA-2022-14, request for a variance from the height limit to allow a fence to be located at 1307 Queens Ferry Road in the NC-15 zoning district, shown as tax map number 12-515-01-040, and the owner of record is a Nicholas and Monica Fazio. Fazio, thank you, sir. The applicant is a Nicholas and Monica Fazio. Zoning district is a neighborhood conservation -15. The board will now hear from city staff. Mr. Derrick.
Thank you very much. All right, this is 1307 Queens Ferry Road. You can see from the vicinity map that the house fronts Queens Ferry Road, but in the rear, it does back up to Third Loop Road. They currently have a 5-foot tall brick fence with 5.5 foot columns. And the neighborhood does have 9 other homes that do back up to Third Loop Road. If this was constructed today, we would require a buffer yard to keep noise down and visibility from residences that are backed up to Third Loop Road. With that not being the case, here's the location map. And then zoning is for NC-15, which only permits single-family homes. Here are some pictures of the front of the house, the driveway, and then you can see the fence in the rear yard. And the fence is 5 feet high. The columns are 5.5 feet high. The owner wishes to raise everything 3 feet to block out the visibility, block out the noise, and go back with the same bricks, same pattern, same style, as close as they can get it, just to raise the elevation of the fence. As I said, there are 9 other homes that do back up to Third Loop. One of the worries would be that once one person gets the variance, then will the other 8 come back and ask for the same thing? But in this situation, fences or walls in excess of maximum allowed height shall require a variance for the Board of Zoning Appeals. So right now, 6 foot height is the maximum, but something taller can be approved by the board, and that's what Mr. Fazio is asking for tonight. He did send me some pictures of another house in the neighborhood on Silverthorne Street that has a pretty large fence. So there is some precedence in the neighborhood for large brick fences. We did receive one complaint from a neighbor that was worried about the noise bouncing off the fence and possibly coming back onto their property. And we did receive a call from the HOA president. So they do have an HOA. The HOA will need to approve this. So one of the conditions will be the variance granted on the condition that they do receive HOA approval. There's some back and forth about whether the HOA is running and current and membership, all that. But I believe that based on the Planning and Enabling Act, one of the conditions should be HOA approval worked into granting the variance if the variance is granted. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Derek. Is there any questions from members of the board for city staff at this time?
I have a question. I mean, can you get approval from the HOA before we grant?
I think, yes, you can. You can, but in this case, Mr. Fazio is not sure if it was defunct. I think it was kind of a call out of the blue. In the past, it has been voluntary, but now the HOA wants him to receive this permission before going forward.
So are you saying the HOA wants to hear from us first before, is that what you're saying?
They want to give permission to put the fence up before the fence is constructed.
So the HOA has no problem with it?
They have not given approval yet.
Have they given a denial?
So before we grant a variance, the board grants a variance, one of the conditions would be upon HOA approval.
But Ms. Moses, she asked, help me if I'm right, did you ask to let the HOA dispute this first before letting the tax dollar? Yeah, that is, so did she answer that? Or, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the board could do it either way. Either they could, with the applicant, they could discuss possibly a deferral upon, receipt of the HOA approval, or you could grant your condition contingent upon approval of the HOA. Either way, that's.
We could take a majority vote and see if you would like to see if the HOA bounces it to them first, let them handle it first, or handle it tonight. I could call vote if you like, see if majority from the
Actually, I'd like to, I've got another question of the city. I've been involved in neighborhoods that had covenants and homeowner associations, and there either is one or there isn't. When I purchased a property that had covenants to it, they were presented to me at closing. So I guess my question is there an official HOA for this neighborhood, or if there is not? Right? Because I've seen unofficial associations. In fact, the neighborhood I live in right now, we have a homeowners association who frankly doesn't have any legal standing at all, but constantly try to assume that they do.
I think the answer to that is that the city's received evidence neither way on that. We're unclear of whether the HOA is functioning or not.
And the reason I bring this up is I'm reluctant to put a requirement that the HOA approve it if there may not be really a functioning HOA, or one that the homeowner agreed to when they purchased the property. So I'm a bit torn about making an HOA requirement on this.
We are required by the Planning and Enabling Act to make sure the owner does get permission from the HOA. It's kind of a legal question whether it is active or inactive.
So does permission mean a omission of permission is no permission at all, or because y'all haven't heard from HOA first, so we're going around now and we're looking at getting them a city variance from us first. as opposed to going through HOA first, like we should. Or is that what you're saying?
Well, we received the HOA call earlier this week, I believe. So, you know, we've kind of already started the process. It's just the legality is not.
The planning staff, we can't issue a zoning, we don't take into account HOA rules. We don't enforce those rules. But if during the application, or if we are made known of any HOA requirements, then until those are resolved, we can't issue any final zoning permits for projects if we are made aware of potential issues with restrictive covenants that may be in place.
So more time is definitely HOA waiting on them. So to delay this would actually be beneficial for everybody to hear from HOA to delay this.
But potentially, you may want to hear from the applicant as well, and open up a public hearing to hear from any public concern with it. But,
Yes.
but yes.
Very good.
And I got one more question, if you don't mind. Is there a way the city can request something from the HOA to prove that they really are an existing active HOA?
We could. I mean, if that's challenged at all within the neighborhood, it could get into some legal questions that the city wouldn't personally get involved with, but we would, if there's dispute amongst that, then we would have to have some sort of proof, either way, yes. If that's indeed in their restrictive covenants, if we get a copy of their restrictive covenants and there's no requirement for this, then it would be a non-issue.
So y'all don't have anything from, have you even spoke to them?
They called to just let us know that an HOA does exist. On our application
Who's the
forms,
president of the HOA? Or who's the head?
the president, she gave me a call.
Oh, she personally gave you a call?
She gave me a call and let me know that the HOA existed. On all our zoning applications, we make sure that that's one of the boxes that you check. Are there any covenants, conditions, restrictions against this request? So,
Was there anything to indicate she's actually in charge of it, or is it she just said she is in charge?
right,
Oh,
we
gotcha.
we would take it at face value.
I have another question. If we grant this variance and this HOA disagrees, and he raises his fence, the HOA is going to come back on the homeowner.
The HOA supersedes the city in this matter. So if the HOA said no, he can't construct it. Even if you grant the variance tonight, if the HOA says no,
So he can't start tomorrow if we say yes.
right?
We better make that conditionally, then you
Conditional.
never know.
We would withhold our permit and the orders to proceed.
Question, the house that you showed us with the taller fence, is that fence blocking the noise and everything on Third Loop? Is that on Third, or is it between houses, or is it
Right.
on Third?
It's just a corner lot. It's Amberley Court and Silverthorne, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So
they're
no,
not
it's no way
blocking-
affected by Third Loop.
Do y'all have anybody on record with a 8-foot fence registered in that neighborhood? I mean, you have to get a variance for it anyways, right?
That would be a complaint driven. It's not something the city
Gotcha.
would go around looking for.
Other than like the last case where somebody just found it.
Right,
Gotcha.
right. Codes enforcement found it, or we received a complaint from a neighbor.
So the applicant took that picture of the fence that he would probably know the footage a little bit better than y'all, right?
To show that there was precedence for
Gotcha.
taller fences.
But y'all don't know, as for the city, y'all don't know the height size of that fence we saw or
Not
the neighborhood.
exactly. Not exactly.
Be a better question for that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
But citywide, there have been variances approved for 8-foot tall fences citywide. I don't recall any specific to Queens Ferry though.
Yes. Do you know the location of the person who's concerned about possible reflected noise?
Yes, they do live on Third Loop.
Okay, so across Third Loop from the applicant's
Right,
rear property.
exactly. Not exactly, but somewhere over there.
All right, but looks like there's foliage in the right of way.
There are some trees.
You mentioned a buffer. What was it? What is that buffer?
So with new neighborhoods, to prevent lots from having frontage on two sides, the front and the rear, and to block from road noise and
Is it in the
visibility.
rear, on Third Loop, the buffer between the property?
If this
owners?
was built now, they would have to have a 20 to 25 foot buffer, which would include trees and shrubs to block visibility, to block noise, to block light pollution.
But at the time it was built, that wasn't in there.
That
That's what
wasn't
you're saying.
something that was.
Very well said. Thank you, Derek. Any other questions for city from members of the board? All right, there being none, we will now hear from the applicant, which is, I understand he's here, Nicholas. Yes, sir. Please come on up. Let me swear you in, and we'll take it from there. Thank you for being here. Okay, Nicholas, all right, let me just swear you in, and we'll go from there. Do you promise everything you're going to tell us tonight is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You may continue.
Yeah, we're just trying to get, we have, like Derek said, with the existing fence, we're just trying to get it heightened a little bit. Our house, we're the second house from the stoplight. So we get traffic and the road's a little more elevated than the back of our house. So we just basically see cars, they're just standing there. Sometimes, I mean, they get the radio going or whatever, and sometimes people just kind of like looking over and they'll say something if we're cooking out on our grill. It's just, there's no privacy whatsoever back there because of that. And just I mean, it's really just the traffic. We're, like I said, we are the second house from the traffic light, and it's just backing up there. And we're just trying to heighten the wall just to kind of take that visual aspect out of looking at all that. Really.
Are you aware of the head, the HOA? Do you know who that is in your neighborhood?
I do not know who it is. I was actually at a meeting last month, which is by our homeowner association, which they, at the meeting is, we discussed, they actually discussed, since the homeowner association is completely voluntary, they were trying to get it involved so that they were trying to file some kind of a legal document to say that it would be a legal HOA, and they were going to go around and get homeowners to sign that at some point and do that. They were trying to put something together, but I never heard anything. I never heard anything after that, so I don't
When
know.
you stated it was voluntary, are y'all paying a fee per month?
The people who have voluntarily paid the fee, when we moved in, there was no homeowner association whatsoever. It started maybe a few years after we moved in, and actually that was one of the reasons we moved in there, because there wasn't a homeowner association. So
What year did you move in?
2006.
Okay.
So, and at some point, a handful of people said they would want to have a homeowner association, I guess, and they got together and they started collecting fees for, groundskeeping and that sort of thing. It's a low fee. It's like $250 a year. So it's not much, but we didn't participate in that because my personal feelings, I don't think a homeowner association is always the best thing for our particular area anyway. But, so yeah, I don't know anything of it being any official capacity whatsoever. So, but I'm willing to work with them. I don't have a problem with that at all. Matter of fact, someone called me and I said, "Yeah, come out and take a look at it." I'm just hoping to get in touch with them. I don't have a problem working with them at all. I don't think they'd have a problem approving it. I just don't know that it should be contingent on an entity that doesn't really legally have any standing at this time. That's the only thing.
And you say you never entered into the housing association? Like,
No, we
you
never
paid
entered in
dues
or paid
fees?
any payments or anything. No, ma'am.
Hadn't signed anything as far as,
No.
other than closing?
Never signed anything. No, sir.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question for you. The fence, I know you're concerned with the rear. Are you 8 foot? Is it going to be the entire perimeter or just the rear?
Just the rear. The perimeter fences on my adjacent properties are both were built by my neighbors. They actually look a little different than my fence. One's a darker brick and one's like a wooden fence. And I've already talked to my neighbors next to me, and they said they don't have a problem with the wall at all back if we extend the fence in the back. So
You have no neighbors come to you personally and the zoning, I mean, they make it very clear
yeah,
you
correct.
hadn't,
Yes, sir.
as the city's indicated. Thank you, sir. Is any other questions from members of the board? Thank you, sir.
All right, if they're done, I do have a question for the city.
Absolutely. Derek?
Okay,
Chico?
The homeowners mentioned that the elevation of the street is higher than the right-of-way. This may sound like a dumb question. How do we measure a fence? The height of the fence?
I know when we're measuring the height of a building, of a house, you take the average elevation. Someone smarter than me with that one.
Yeah, you won't, so.
But it would be measured from the base of the base of the fence. I mean, it would be the average elevation across, but it would actually be measured from the fence. But I think that's one of the things that you look at when you're granting a variance, things like that, because elevations of the land and streets are all different from site to site, and this is one of the things that may make this a little more unique than if it was a solid elevation. So.
Correct, because since I've been on this board, we granted a rather tall fence due to elevation because headlights were hitting the house.
That's right, because of some elevation.
Because of a change in elevation on the adjacent street.
That's right.
Okay, so in this case, I'm not entirely familiar with it, but I mean, I can definitely visualize how the roadway might be significantly higher than the right-of-way by the time you get to his property. So,
Mr. Chico, do you remember the height of that fence that we granted?
I think it was somewhere between 8 and 10 feet.
I think that one was 10 feet.
I think it was 10 feet.
And he's asked for 8.
Is that what the one I know still?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 10.
Wow.
Wooden fence.
Wooden fence.
But yeah, his backyard sloped down towards it.
Any other questions for members of the board, or any other questions for the applicant? There being none, doesn't seem like anybody from the public or anybody else willing to speak, or anybody else needs to be heard. All right, there being none, I would actually like to ask the city question before we continue this. If it is granted, I know, Derek, you mentioned the HOA has precedence over. Okay, we're already here. We're already here in the case, and if we do grant it, and the HOA does become a legal, or if it does exist, or whichever, that is something that would be handled. And if they disagree and are existent and are legit, then it'll be conditional on that, correct?
Exactly. We could not grant the variance unless the HOA approves the
Now, what if
fence.
HOA does not exist? Then it would be approved based on tonight, correct?
Can I rephrase that question?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I want to try to encourage.
So frankly, we don't have to, if we approve, we don't have to make it conditional on any HOA approval because the city is going to take care of that.
We will take care of that. That's correct. Yes,
So
we can take care of that.
We could grant the
You
variance.
could grant the variance, and on our side, we will, to the best of our ability, verify the existence or non-existence of this HOA. We can potentially, take a look at the restrictive covenants that accompany the property or the neighborhood if they exist, and if they do not exist, and if nothing exists at this time, even if they're trying to form something, it does not exist at this time, so we would be able to grant it. So
Okay,
we'll-
thank you.
and we'll check with the city attorney on that to verify that as well.
That was my question. If he did it now before this imaginary HOA came into formalization, they couldn't say anything anyway because it would have already been
That's right.
granted.
They would have no legal authority. That's right.
Don't pay dues to the HOA. Like say whether he pay dues or don't pay dues to the HOA, will they still have legal grounding to govern what he do?
It would depend on how their covenants are written, if they exist.
They don't exist.
Thank you. That's why we have much brighter minds than myself to rephrase the question. Thank you, Mr. Chico. All righty, there being no other question, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request.
I move that we approve the variance request, in that a variance from the terms of this ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest, where owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions will, in an individual case, result in an unnecessary will not result in an unnecessary hardship. The Queensferry neighborhood was constructed with 9 homes backing up to Third Loop Road, creating 3 through lots. If a neighborhood were constructed today, with this layout, a 25-foot landscape buffer yard would be required between the homes and Third Loop Road. That the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. The intent of the ordinance is to limit the height of fences in the rear yard of residentially zoned properties and mitigate the impact to adjacent properties. That there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. Queensferry neighborhood was constructed with 9 homes backing up to Third Loop Road. If a neighborhood were constructed today with this layout, a 25-foot landscape buffer yard would be required between the homes and Third Loop Road. Without this buffer yard, traffic noise and road visibility are amplified. That these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. 9 other homes in Queensferry also backed up to Third Loop Road. That because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property as follows: requiring adherence to the specifics of the ordinance regarding fence height would not prevent the use of the home as a single-family residence. However, the owner would like relief from the noise and visible disturbance caused by Third Loop Road. That the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Property owners adjacent to 1307 Queensferry Road may object to the proposal of an 8-foot fence. This could create a critical mass of requests from property owners along Third Loop Road for the same fence height variance.
Thank you, Ms. Moses. We have a motion to grant the variance request. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. This variance request is granted. Thank you so much, sir, and you have a wonderful day, and appreciate coming through these channels. All right, there being nothing else on this evening's agenda, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move the motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Second. Or second. All in favor, saying aye. The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned.
All right, great job, guys.
What company is doing this?
Tomorrow.